Hey, good. Let's get rolling. Let's get into this. So, let's have some fun. Okay, here we go. There's something you need to know basically about what's happening with the government. At this moment in time, there is a change occurring. Now, obviously, a lot of you are like, whatever, November's coming up. It's not a big deal. It actually is a huge deal, and here's why. We're going to start off with why we're doing this video. So, the reason we're doing this video is that the federal government has a lot of agencies, programs, stuff it pays for. And yes, obviously, you all know now that food stamps, for the most part, are going to be cut off in November. And pretty much every single state has said that they can't really fund them going forward. Although some of the blue states are saying they might try to do it, but they need about 6 billion, or sorry, they need about 8.5 billion to actually, do it for a month for food stamps, like pay for them. But at the end of the day, the problem is that they only have about 6 billion in reserve. So they can do a little bit, but they can't do enough. So it is interesting that the government's not really focusing on how they're going to go ahead and get an extra 2.5 billion. But let that sink in for a moment. Like when it comes to food stamps, it takes around $8.5 billion a month to go ahead and fund things. So just let that sink in as to how big of a number that is and why we have so many people on food stamps in a country that's supposed to be filled with magical unicorn-like opportunities for everybody, which of course it's not. But think about that for a moment. Let's start off. Food, humans need it, but it's not the only thing that is shutting down for the poor in November, or really any American. They will tell you, literally in the news today, to buy shelf-stable food, which is their version of saying buy food that's going to sit on the shelf for a while. But if we're really honest with each other, if we say it from a point of view of somebody who would understand how the poor are actually doing, the poor have already spent their food stamps, their food supply money for the month. So just to be clear, there's no buying of shelf-stable food. The money's already gone. Now, I want to start off with some basic quotes because I think they're important. They're very educational. Let's go with it. Quote, this is from President Lyndon B. Johnson upon signing the Food Stamp Act of 1964. As a permanent program, the food stamp plan will be one of our most valuable weapons for the war on poverty. And he was right. It was. Now, Ronald Reagan came in and said, God has blessed our great country with rich abundance by reminding us that in the land of plenty, there can be no excuse for hunger. The Task Force on Food Assistance has presented us with a challenge. Another quote, Tammy Duckworth, U.S. Senator, okay, nobody wants to be on food stamps, but when my family lost everything, we were grateful for it. I was grateful the program was there so I could concentrate on my schoolwork and not on my empty belly. We were grateful that we had the support we needed to roll up our sleeves and rebuild our lives. Now, the only kicker is nowadays we have TikTok. Nowadays we have Facebook Shorts. So the whole nobody wants to be on food stamps is not turning out to be completely accurate. In fact, some people schedule their entire existence, how many kids they have, what they're doing, how they're making videos about food stamps on basically when the food stamps are coming out and demanding that a lot of the middle class have to take care of them and their children. And that's pissing off a lot of middle class. Next quote, programs like food stamps, unemployment insurance, Medicaid, and job retraining help Americans get back on their feet when they are down and out and laid off through no fault of their own. Hank Johnson, U.S. Representative. I think what's interesting about the situation is that we don't see a lot of specifics from a lot of House reps, senators on how they're going to go ahead and fix this situation. Have any of you actually sat back and said to yourself, hey, wait a minute, how many news conference moments, news bite samples, sound bites, have we heard from different politicians in the House and the Senate for trying to pump up, promote, handshake some ideas out into the cosmos about how they would fix this situation? Because, at the end of the day, we're seeing Democrats vote Democrat. We're seeing Republicans vote Republican. I mean, sure, there's a few people sliding each way, but we're seeing some hard party lines here. Let's keep reading. In the U.S., about 40% of births are unplanned. Per the Guttmacher Institute, and poverty rates are higher among families with more kids, U.S. Census Bureau 2021. So to be fair, we have a lot of people having children that they didn't expect to have, about 40%, which, to be fair, could answer why a lot of families are not ready to take care of kids. Look at me. I'm almost 40. I have 0 kids. I have 2 dogs. One of them is very judgmental. That's Sweetie. She literally spent a good 3 hours worth of today just judging me, barking and snarking at me. Shadow's happy to be happy. He's good. He's a good little snarkle muffin. Now, with that said, I don't have any kids. I live in perpetual fear of having children because my student loans are horrendous. My student loans cost more than the average person gets in benefits. So, just to kind of keep that in mind, perpetual slave to the system of student loans. So, at the end of the day, it's one of those gigs where we're not really getting people having kids that can actually achieve in the environment they exist in. The people who are hyper educated can't afford them because the student loans are too high. People in the middle class really can't afford them because the bottom line is they don't make enough. The people in the blue collar jobs, they're having them, but they're not having enough. Some of them, many of them can't afford them. That's going to be the future millionaires right there. And then, of course, you have the impoverished class. They couldn't afford them. They didn't plan on them, or if they did plan on them, it's because they knew how to go ahead and get the benefits to back them on a monthly basis. They're not dumb. They're smart. A lot of people, no, they can't, they don't know. No. They're smart. They know what they're doing. I want to explain to you real quick the history of food stamps because there's a lot of misunderstanding of how this whole thing got started. Okay, so you go back to essentially World War II. There were around 4 million-ish participants, 1939 to 1943 period. So, it's spread a little bit, about 4 years spreadage there. So the bottom line is it started World War II, but then it ended. They actually stopped doing food stamps. Then they did a nationwide rollout, right? About 0.2 million. It was a pilot program, 1964. As you know, President Lyndon B. Johnson, he was the spearheading president of the whole thing. Thank you, Lyndon B. Johnson. Because think about it. I mean, we didn't have him, we wouldn't have food stamps. And food stamps are like crucial. Food stamps are just as crucial as retirement, just as crucial as Social Security, disability. They're crucial. So I had somebody argue with me today about food stamps. And I was just like, man, you gotta have food stamps. But anyway, I'm not getting into it. Bottom line is this: 1974, 15 million participants. So 70s, 15 million. 80s, around 21, 23, 24. 90s, 27 million. 2000s, 17 million. Okay. 2007s, 26 million. 2011. 46 million, 2019, 36 million, 2020, 43 million, 2021, 42 million, 2023, 41 for 2024. It's stabilized around 41, okay, million, participants every single month. Now, I was thinking about that number, 41 million participants. Let me look it up real quick. How many citizens does America have? Okay, so let's see what the numbers are. 342.7 million. So there's 300 people that are citizens of America that don't receive food stamps, and basically around 41, 42-ish that do. So then I got to wonder, and I think there was a statistic, I think it was like something like 1 in 8 receives it, but it was a generalized whatever number. I started to think to myself, how is it possible that in a nation with this many jobs and this much freedom and this much excess, because think about it, like we go to Walmart, we can buy this, you go to other countries. Some of you haven't been to other countries. Other countries don't really have Walmart supercenters like that. I mean, they're getting some of that stuff now, but they don't have super ultra grocery stores like we have here. Stores are much smaller. You get what you get. They have what they have. It is what it is. So I guess what I just didn't understand about this is, how did America, the government, become a mass subsidy enterprise? And that's when I kind of realized America has capitalism where people are hyper successful and they don't really bring others up with them at the level that they should be, at a degree that is respectable for the timeline of the amount of space they need to, build up the freshman team. All right, let me give you an example. When you got like a field some sports players, they got your varsities, right? Your top, you get sophomores, varsities, your juniors, stuff like that. The sophomores, the juniors are growing towards becoming varsity players. And then these freshmen, everybody kicks them around. Nobody loves them. They're the puppy that didn't get love, right? Okay, cool. You got that. So the bottom line here is this, okay? My point is, it just seems like companies, if they were to invest in the future employees more, because, right, we're not investing in employees as they age, right? Pensions are gone. Okay, so obviously that's companies were like, thank you so much, get out of here. That's what they're at now. But they're not investing into their future employees in the way that they should. Some of them are like, okay, we'll pay for some of your school. I guess my thing is this: why are companies not creating hyper loyal people that are contracted to work for them going forward? I just think it would be a much more sensible thing for companies to literally have situations where they're buying houses for their employees, where they're basically setting up all these different things for their employees to create that culture of it. You'll notice Elon's doing a lot of that in Texas. Just to point that out, just to point it out. All right, let's talk about this. SNAP costs, okay? Small households usually get about $200, $300 a month. Larger households between $600 and $975 per month. Differs per state because some states are more expensive. Some states are cheaper, right? Alaska, very expensive. Hawaii, very expensive. Louisiana, not so expensive, okay? So at the end of the day, just to be clear, 42 million people, roughly 8.5 billion total monthly cost for the federal government, which is just insane. I can't even comprehend. I can't even imagine $1 billion. When I think of $1 billion, I think of like Pepsi throwing like an event where you could like maybe win a super jet or $1 billion. Like, to me, it's just an impossible amount of money. It doesn't even conceptually make sense. Like, if I look at a football field and I see $1 billion, I'm like, still, how does that work? Like, what do I do with that? All right, let's talk about basically some of these programs that are going to be shutting down along with SNAP benefits. And I want you to remember that there's something going on with the transition to November. And that's where a lot of the funding that exists, this kind of like discretionary, not mandatory, we kind of get the play with it money, all that's running out. That stuff is running out for the most part going into essentially November. And my point with this whole thing is that at the end of the day, and I want you to understand this. It is a very important thing that if Americans take one thing from this government shutdown, should it be that Republicans are doing this? Should it be that Democrats are pushing that? Should it be that? No. It should be that both sides, both political sides, the spectrum of the people that represent you, not only chose to not keep the government open, but they chose not to put enough money in reserve to keep your lives going in the direction they're supposed to. Now, some of you will argue your life hasn't changed at all. And I would respond with the following. I would respond and say, yeah, so far, but trust me, November, December, even the people that are in the untouchable categories are going to be noting some very severe riots, some very severe crime. Okay, so even if you're in like the whole, I'm not touchable, let me assure you, you will be. All right. I want to go through some of these things so that you understand specifically the types of things that are going to go ahead and shut down. And then we're going to go through what happens, unfortunately, with society as the shutdown occurs. That way, there's no question at all in your mind as to why it is crucial for the government to turn itself back on. So, SNAP benefits, food assistance benefits. Bottom line is this. Pretty much every state has come out and said that they can't fund essentially food stamps, except for like New York and maybe California. We're going to do maybe some partial funding or maybe like November, but not extras beyond that. The federal government has warned the states, don't you dare tell people, don't you dare send us processing requests. We are not going to pay them for November, okay? Special supplemental nutrition program. So there's supplemental nutrition assistance, and then there's special nutrition assistance program, and that's like your WIC. That's basically where women young children, they get extra money on top. Some of you don't like that. I would just like to proffer to you, we don't want the birthing parent. We don't want, I guess nowadays I'd have to say the parent in general. We don't want kids and parents not being able to afford the basic necessities to render a healthy child. I mean, sure, we could take a step farther and create Medicare for all, but who wants that when we could just, spend a lot of money on these other programs to kind of like put a little stick across the bridge to just hold it up a little longer. Of course. Then there's also the CSFP, which is the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, stops food package distributions to low-income seniors. I mean, who cares about retired people, right? Who cares about them, right? All they are the people that built the nation that we're all enjoying, even though it's shut down right now. So just a little idea. It's about 700,000 elderly individuals that would receive things in assistance. Just something to consider. And then there's the FMNP program, the Farmers Market Nutrition Program. Basically, it's vouchers for fresh produce at farmers markets for WIC and senior participants. Why is that important? Obviously, we're feeding people who can't afford food. That's why it's important. Other USDA services. So you've got the Rural Development Program, the RDP. Okay. Suspends new loans, grants for rural housing, utilities, and community facilities. So for the people that are out in the boonies, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to get that tank in the back of the truck and go driving by your water. Then we got the SSIS. Okay. All programs that are basically not going to be working in November, okay, for the most part. Food Safety and Inspection Service, non-essential functions. This is where they're cutting down some of the functions. This is about curtails training, non-critical inspections, lab certifications, essential would include meat and poultry inspections, but basically a lot of food type inspections are not going to be occurring. I mean, the ones that'll get you real sick, they're going to keep doing those. That's important. I mean, the whole schmutz of getting healthy food that won't make us sick is probably important. But again, it's going to be partially shut down. Next one, Forest Service, non-essential operations are occurring, or rather they're not occurring. Closes additional ranger stations, recreation sites, non-emergency wildfire prevention programs. I mean, look, the RVers are going to be unhappy about that one, but what are you going to do? You know what I mean? It's not like you were going to go to, America's beautiful forests and America's beautiful, seashores and enjoy yourself. We're all either working or basically disabled or retired or wondering what the hell happened to the money. And I'm not picking on Biden with that one. It's just like, what the hell happened to the money? I remember when $500 was a huge deal. Now it's like, I'm shopping on Walmart and I'm like, I'm getting close. Getting real close to that. The whole month, that's getting real close. All right, let's talk about HHS. You guys should know a lot about HHS, but I don't think a lot of you do, but that's okay. It's Health and Human Services. They're like in control of your HIPAAs and high techs and, stuff that's your rights about your health. It's an important group. Who cares, right? All right. Head Start program suspends new enrollments and reduces services. In some centers, furloughs about 100,000 staff. Basically partial closure, stuff like that. Community health centers that are not essential. Halts non-emergency services. So if you need dental care, from a federally funded clinic, you need preventative care, right? It's going to affect about 30 million patients. Drop in the bucket. Who cares? Hey, is what it is. What about substance abuse and mental health services? Pauses new grants for addiction treatment and mental health programs. You know what I think is interesting about this one? Trump came out with this idea that instead of housing people first, he was going to institutionalize them and then house them, which does make sense. Like if you work with the homeless, I know some of you don't, and some of you are keyboard warriors for the left. And I trust me, I see the comments and I'm like, damn, this person has no effing clue how any of this works. But again, they've been on blogs. So, I mean, they got their degrees, their accolades, their military accomplishments all over their body. Just the front, the back, the whole schmutz. So even their shoes have little tassels. So the point is, I understand a lot of people don't understand how it works. And I'm not going into it. I just, but anyways, it seems odd that we would halt substance abuse program integration, grant funding, generalized program funding for basically, people who are hyper abusive and using and going to be homeless. It just seems like an interesting thing considering this is a population who is largely able to access the general public of Americans while not being of sound mind, while on mind altering stuff. You would just think like you'd want to prioritize that in the government shutdown where everybody's getting hungry. You would think that you'd want to like keep those individuals focused on getting clean and off their drug of choice. But again, is what it is. I'm not judging. Department of the Interior. So you got the National Park Service, non-essential operations. They're closing visitor centers, campgrounds, non-emergency maintenance. Over 400 parks have already partially closed at this point. So to the RVers, I feel you. One day, I would love to go see all the national parks. That's actually a life dream for me. If you're ever wondering, like, what's the life dream for that guy? I want to go see all the national parks, national seashores, national wildlife, blah, blah, whatever. I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. I want to understand what this country was before we effed it all up. That's all I want. I just want to, you know what I mean? I don't think that's a lot to ask. Okay. Let me tell you something. And I'm going to be real straightforward with you on this. Very straightforward. The moment they come out with an RV that can self-drive autonomously, this is taken out alone. This guy is taken out alone. All right. It's happening. I don't care if it's a cool looking RV. Let me tell you something. I drive a 2010 Prius that has peeling paint and it makes a weird sound on one of the wheels when you drive it real slow. I will get the shitty RV and drive that thing. All right, let's keep rolling. Bureau of Land Management, BLM. That's like those big, vast spaces of GovLand, suspends recreational programs, permit processing, and non-essential land management. No surprise there. Here's the EPA. Republicans are going to love this one. Environmental inspections and grants. Halts to non-emergency inspections, so like air, water quality, grant disbursements, stuff like that. Climate and sustainability programs. Again, Republicans are going to like this. Suspends grants for renewable energy and climate adaptation projects. The funny thing is when you look at like the two groups, the two political, you got the left who hyperfunds green technology and then somehow loses their ass on it completely, sells some of the companies that they mega funded with millions of dollars to foreign nations when they're slightly successful and maybe might survive, as some of them go to China. And then the Republicans are like, we just need to create a small government and let businesses do what businesses do. I don't know where you are on the political spectrum, but I know this. I would like to see green energy cost less. I would, because we've been fiddling with it for a while. And I just think it's time to fund thermos bottle fusion a little bit more. It would be so cool to like have lots of wind farms and solar farms and crap like that. But it would be a hell of a lot cooler to have a thermos bottle cold fusion reactor that could literally completely power the United States in total. Again, solar farms are fine too. They're fine too. Okay. They suck. Guys, they take up all that land. They ruin all the land under it. It's lots of pipes in the ground. It's Department of Housing and Urban Development, public housing operation grants, suspended new disbursements, community development block grants, the CDBG, halts new funding for local infrastructure, housing rehab, and economic development. Basically, stuff for the poor just ain't going to happen. Okay, so if you're like, I really hope I get housing this year, pump the brakes on that excitement. Just a little bit of pump the brakes. All right. Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration pauses new grants for state and local road projects. Ongoing construction will likely slow. Transit grants suspends new funding for public transit systems. Of course, basically, poor people trying to get from point A to point B, lots of potholes for the middle class. And, rich don't care. Rich don't care. They'll have it delivered. It is what it is. Let's go to other places. Small Business Administration, SBA, stops new loans, guarantees. The only time I've ever really interacted with the SBA, during COVID, I took out a $25,000 loan which is different than like all of my other fellow lawyers. They took out like $150,000 loan, $350,000 loan, $1 million loan. I took out a $25,000 loan. I'm still paying that sucker back. I'm still paying that little shit back. Yeah, I think it just got under 20 grand. Anyways, I used that because I'd run out of money to do payroll because like COVID, you know what I mean? Like I could tell you the whole story about COVID. That's what happened. Department of Education suspends new grants for K-12 higher education, special education programs. National Institute of Health pauses new research grants and non-essential lab work. Smithsonian Institute closes museums and non-essential research. Library of Congress shuts public access. That's right. The People's Library. You can't go there because the Democrats and the Republicans have decided to basically act like 4-year-olds. That's basically where we're at. Anyways, shut public access, non-essential research, copyright processing. Hey, all right, what is going to happen when this whole thing comes down? Let's just be honest about it. Let's just look. We're going to go through what people are going to be doing, and then we're going to go through things I want you to keep in mind as this is going on, because I want you to know how to get food when you can't get food from food stamps. Okay. And remember, I work with a homeless facility all the time. So like, there's secrets out there that are almost impossibly easy to just stumble upon by opening your eyes. That's Shadow. He's got a nose thingy going on. He'll be okay. All right, let's go through it. Number 1, food stamps run out. What are we going to see a lot of? You guessed it, theft and shoplifting. Shit, just tons of it. Okay. Engaging in basically interactions and transactions that are not good for them. They're going to be selling off whatever they have to be able to get stuff, to buy stuff, etc. And I don't even just mean in the legal sense. I mean like the people who sell their food stamps illegally, they're just going to be going ahead and they're in a tough spot. Next one, you're going to see all kinds of types of crime. Okay, you're going to see people stealing bicycles, people stealing motorcycles. You're going to see people breaking into buildings. You're going to see people doing all kinds of stuff. If something's nice on a car, they'll tear it off the car. You know how many of those little insignias on the back of my Prius have been stolen? I had one guy who stole one, came back to me, screamed at me that it wasn't real gold. Of course, it's not real gold. It's an emblem. It's an emblem that I bought on eBay about a group that I represent. It's an emblem. I'm not going to put gold on my car. I mean, I couldn't afford that much gold on my car. You realize how much like that little emblem, that's like probably $4,000 of gold to put on about you. That's insane. All right. Anyways, I go to nice places with my fallen apart Prius. Very nice. You would like them. Next thing, a lot of people who are obviously not getting food stamps, their health is going to go to shit. They're going to neglect, all kinds of stuff. Hygiene. They're going to have all kinds of new conditions, new kinds of issues. And remember, stress. The stress of this thing, it's going to make people miserable. And stress causes all kinds of problems, not just anxiety, depression, PTSD, panic attacks, but also your body tenses up, your body swells, and it causes all kinds of problems. Okay? You're going to be seeing what I like to call the friend of a friend favor stuff. You're going to be seeing people asking people for stuff. You're going to see family members getting strained and family members getting pissed because people are asking for stuff when they normally wouldn't. They will overstep their bounds and create family breakdowns in the ties, which is not good because when you burn bridges, you're not helping society build itself up. You cannot create and innovate with negative energy. I know some of you say you can, but you can't. All right. You know that people are going to be selling all kinds of stuff, including, you know what I mean, what they got. We're not talking about just OF stuff. We're talking about, what's going to be happening. A lot of that stuff, okay? Next one, you will be seeing people at the grocery store that are able to get certain items, basically hoarding and overloading to capture those resources to then try and sell them to people who get a little bit of money here and there to try and get something. So you will see a secondary market of grocery stuff being sold by people who are trying to make a little extra money. You will see neglect in family members. Unfortunately, the ones that tend to get the worst neglect are the youngest. Why? Because we got a lot of shitty parents. in America. If they don't have their food stamps, they don't have their kids' food stamps, guess what's going to happen to their brain? They're going to feel like they have to survive themselves, and they are going to deprioritize the child who normally gets money to pay for the lifestyle of the adult parent. So, look, some of you know this. Some of you know how these people can be when it comes to not receiving food stamps and their kid needs food and they don't supply the food to the child. But just, if you're not in the industry, you're going to say, that's horrible. How could you say that? But if you're in the industry, you know why DCF does what DCF does. Now, DCF oversteps a lot, but you know why DCF does what it does. Okay, you know. All right. Now, with that said, I want to go through some basic things as well. Social Security Administration, because obviously we talk about Social Security, what's going to be shutting down, slowing down there. But first, I don't do Medicare. So if you need Medicare stuff, you have questions, you want to see if your doctors are caught up in all this mega fraud, which is literally, it's the largest fraud of like the Social Security stuff, is in the Medicare field. Doctors are getting arrested. Nurses are getting arrested. The little back office code people that send off, we did this, and this to Medicare, they're getting arrested. I don't do Medicare stuff. Give them a call. They can do a tune-up on your benefits. Why? Because a lot of the programs make financial sense, and a lot of their programs, to be fair, are catered more specifically to the impairments, conditions, symptoms, and medications that you need to have, that you already have, okay? Now, with that said, obviously with the Social Security Administration, retirement, SSDI benefits, SSI benefits, disabled child benefits, auxiliary benefits, spousal benefits, widows benefits, blah, they're all still paying. Awesome, but new benefit applications are slowed, which is ironic because Commissioner Bisignano, the super CEO from the banking industry, was supposed to come in and like quasi wipe out the massive backlog. But now the Republicans have an excuse as to why the backlog is growing. So this kind of works to the Republican advantage, but it does tend to piss people off. I'm just saying what it is, okay? Card replacements suspended. Claim disputes and appeals, the amount of people working on them reduced, because remember, they furloughed about 6,000 employees. Earnings record corrections suspended. Okay, benefit verification letters. Basically, you get what's online, or if it's a massive emergency, they might be able to print one or do something. Overpayment processing and recoveries suspended, although they are still doing their investigations. CDI units, OIG, all that jazz. COLA announcement delayed, but still processing. National 800 number is operational, but they've got this AI program going on in it. It's shit. It's not good. Field office services, they're open if you make an appointment, but the staffing is reduced. So good luck. Good luck with getting in there. All right. So with that said, you can even monitor the updates. Just go to ssa.gov/shutdown. But, the SSA isn't producing media right now. Like OIG isn't producing press updates. SSA isn't producing press updates. They're not updating their emergency messages. They're not updating their policy updates. None of that stuff's getting updated. It's just not happening, okay? Now, I want to talk about a final thing here, okay? And I think it's incredibly important. And I want to bring it to your attention because at the end of the day, I don't feel like a lot of you think about this, and I don't think a lot of you really have a proper understanding as to like what's going to happen. We have all these programs that basically do a little version, a supplemental version of everybody getting a check every month and everybody having health insurance that is a citizen. Does it not surprise you that out of the 10, 11 times that they voted on whether or not they're going to reopen the government, does it not surprise you that these politicians that are supposed to have your best interests at heart, which obviously they don't, like, you can, of course, Bernie loves me, AOC and Trump, I mean, come on. Like, think about it. Just think about it for a moment. They're there fighting for you on the Hill. They can't figure out how to partially fund the stuff that we need most. They can't pass a side bill to continue to fund Food stamps? They can't do an executive order? Well, what am I missing here? Wait, what am I missing here? Hey, look, I get it. Government shutdown. Okay? Especially in third world countries like this one that we're living in at the moment. My point to you is, how did the government not go ahead and put enough money aside to make sure we, the people, were covered? Like, the government exists for our benefit. That's it. That's literally the only reason. So when you sit back and you think, maybe the US government didn't know that, like, we would need things. But then you think, hey, wait a minute. The US government owns the IRS and the US Treasury. And they've got some pretty good chief actuaries, math people. So you got to wonder, like, how did they not know? How did they not know that they should take tax money and put it aside for food stamps? Right? How did they not know that having like a month and a half-ish of money for food stamps wasn't going to be enough? It's weird. It's really terrifying because, if you think about it this way, like, how many months should we put aside to make sure Americans can be Americans? I would say 3 months. We should have 3 months worth of funding in reserve, in trust funds, specifically for if there is a problem. Because, you're looking at this whole thing right now and you're like, well, America's just trying to figure something out. It's trying to, blah, 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 blah. Just a little trying to wiggle their way through this thing, right? Okay. But let me add some things that change the chessboard, right? Let's say America goes ahead, just to be clear, and gets into a war. Well, you know how much America cares about you, because not even in a war, we don't have enough money in reserve to fund America's survival. I really think something's going to happen. I think there's a lot of able-bodied individuals who are receiving food stamps that are in a targeted zone right now for military attendance. I really think that's going to be something that's prioritized. Because think about it, right? They're not doing things. They're able-bodied. They might not have impairments at the level required for the severity of Social Security disability. I think the military is going to want them. I think that's going to be probably prioritized. All right. With that said, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video where we talked about all the different programs that are basically going to suspend, furlough, shut down, restrict, quasi-fire a bunch of people. And the point that I'm getting at here that I hope you understand the overall arching effect of this thing, which is, number one, America can't afford you. America can't afford you in peacetime, which is what it is for us right now. Number two, America really can't afford you in wartime. Yeah. Which is weird because the thing that funds America, the engine, the lungs, the brain, would be the working class paying taxes. Yeah, it's a weird thing to say that the thing that literally feeds the monkey is the thing that is constantly having to pay more to survive. It's weird. It's just very weird. Like, I just sit back and I get concerned. I guess that's what I'm saying. All right. With that said, please remember to like and subscribe. Hit the like button. Don't be afraid of it. It's right there. You can squiggle it. I will catch up with you tomorrow to likely go ahead and go live to answer questions. I can't do it tonight. It's 1:48 a.m. Thank you for all the warriors that were up with me super late tonight. I appreciate that immensely. With that said, if ... you need a disability attorney, you can always give me a call during the regular 9 to 5, America's Most Viewed, subscribed to and clicked on. And if you need a private consultation, 30-minute, 1-hour ones, mini contract is below. For Medicare stuff, give them a call. Let them do a tune-up. I will catch you all a little bit later. Have a wonderful night, and we will rock and roll from there. Thank you so much, Attorney Walter Hnot. And please be kind to each other. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.